I don't care about you. I just want your vote.
I'm so upset. Oh my God.
Begah!
Welcome to TYT. I'm your host, Anna Kasparian, and I'm exhausted. So bear with me today. I've been traveling a lot. Just flew in from New York to LA this morning, and have gotten very little sleep. But there's a lot of really interesting stories in the rundown today, including I never in a million years would have thought I would say this, but maybe the best interview of a United States senator I have ever seen. Tucker Carlson interviews Senator Ted Cruz. Wow. So we're gonna spend some time on that because they did touch on a lot of different topics. Clearly, Tucker Carlson came very prepared. Ted Cruz thought he was gonna be able to squirm his way out of uncomfortable situations in the context of that interview, of course. So we're gonna get to some of the highlights that I've noticed people aren't talking about as much. So we'll get to that first. We're also gonna give you an update on the latest as it pertains to what feels like us barreling toward a regime change war in Iran. This whole nuclear weapons thing, I believe, is a facade. I believe it's just the excuse to, drum up enough support for us to get involved in a regime change war in Iran. I really hope that it doesn't happen, but there hasn't really been a lot of great updates, especially over the last few days when it comes to that story. And we've got a lot of other things to get to, including I guess another Turning Point USA event in which Charlie Kirk said something to a young girl in braces, like she has braces, and he's giving her life advice that for whatever reason really upset me and seemed so condescending, patronizing, and gross. But anyway, we're gonna get to that later in the second hour of the show. By the way, unfortunately, my co-host today had some sort of emergency and couldn't join me, so I'll be doing the whole show by myself today, which is excellent. It's a great day to do it by myself, but it's gonna be fine. Kate Bettino, our producer, is going to join me in the bonus episode with our members, and we're gonna go over my CNN appearance last night on Abby Phillips's show. I really want to talk about it with you guys and see what you think. So we'll get to that in the bonus episode, tyt.com/join to become a member. All right, enough of that. Let's get to our first story.
Are AIPAC's goals shaped by the goals of the Israeli government? And I'm just gonna ask you a question straightforwardly. And if you say no, I think we both know that's not true.
Hey, are they shaped by?
Are they coordinating with the Israeli government?
Are they talking with them? Yes.
The Israeli
Israel
government?
directing them? You want to talk about FARA? The law on lobbying on behalf of someone.
Yeah.
It is, I hire you and you lobby on behalf of me. I direct you. Does Israel direct AIPAC? No.
What you're now describing in a very defensive way, I will say, is foreign influence over our politics.
No.
And you began, and it's so transparently obvious to everybody.
It's a very weird thing. The obsession with Israel, when we're talking about foreign countries.
It's hardly an obsession.
You're not talking about Chinese, you're not talking about Japanese, you're not talking about the Brits, you're not talking about the French. The question, what about the Jews? What about the Jews?
Oh, I'm an anti-Semite now.
Tucker Carlson carried out what I believe to be one of the best, if not the best, interview of a sitting United States senator that I've ever seen. I mean, it was incredible. You just heard him, in a bit of an exchange with Republican Senator Ted Cruz, who he sparred with throughout the entirety of their 2-hour-long conversation. And it's getting a lot of attention online. And I really went out of my way to try to find the points of that conversation that people aren't talking about as much. Some of you may have come across the video that went viral featuring Ted Cruz, essentially letting the world know that he doesn't know basic facts about Iran a country that he would like to see regime change in, a country that the United States might get involved in pushing for regime change in. Unbelievable, right? So that went viral for obvious reasons. He didn't even know the ethnic makeup of the residents of Iran, didn't know the population. It's just, you might want to know whether or not, it's ruled by Sunnis, Shiites, like it's just basic. If you're gonna try to carry out a regime change war, you need to know the basics. Okay. I'm not going to talk about that because there's so many other topics that they touched on, including the influence of something we talk about quite a bit on this show, and that's the Israel lobby, okay? It's not the Jewish lobby, it's the Israel lobby. It's known as AIPAC. And I say Israel lobby because this lobby isn't about helping Jewish people across the world. This is a lobby that is powerful because of its involvement of evangelical Christians and yes, Zionists as well. And it's not to make life better for Jews in America, for instance. It's all about basically lobbying our government to carry out policies that are preferential and beneficial to Israel. And I was shocked to see that Tucker Carlson wanted to take Cruz to task over this. So without further ado, let's take a look.
I've never taken money from the Israel lobby. Have you?
Taken money from the Israel?
From AIPAC.
So AIPAC raises a lot of money for me, but it's actually a misnomer because the people who raise money are individuals. Right. So it's not the PAC itself, but they're individual members who believe in the American-Israeli friendship and relationship.
Is AIPAC a foreign lobby?
No, it's an American lobby. It's the AIPAC stands for the America-Israeli Political Action Committee.
What does it lobby for?
So, to be honest, not a whole lot effectively. Listen, I came into Congress 13 years ago with the stated intention of being the leading defender of Israel in the United States Senate.
Great.
And I've worked every day to do that. AIPAC, a lot of times, AIPAC, I wish were much more effective.
My understanding, having known a lot of people who work at AIPAC, is that it lobbies on behalf of the Israeli government.
Wrong.
Oh, okay. When was the last time AIPAC took a position that deviated from Prime Minister Netanyahu?
All the time.
Name one.
Okay. Let me go back and give a little history. If you want to do a deep dive on AIPAC,
I don't. I want to do a shallow dive that gets.
No.
I want to get to the core question. AIPAC is lobbying for a foreign government, and I don't. It's not. It's lobbying for the United States.
It is lobbying for a strong U.S.-Israeli relationship.
Guys, I have never seen anyone in media, okay, whether we're talking about left-wing media, right-wing media, I haven't seen a single journalist in this country ask an aggressive line of questioning like that about AIPAC and its influence on US foreign policy, especially in the Middle East, obviously. That was amazing. I mean, look, I hate to be in a position where I'm praising a man who I have far more disagreements with than agreements with, but I don't care. I don't care. This interview was incredible. First of all, how illuminating is it that we literally have a sitting United States senator who openly says that he came into the Senate promising to be the #1 representative and defender of Israel, of a foreign country, If that doesn't infuriate you, there's something wrong with you. He was supposed to represent this country, the constituents who voted him in the great state of Texas, right? And he feels like it's totally okay to openly say, I came into the Senate, committed to be the #1 representative, supporter, whatever. I can't remember the exact word he used, but basically to represent Israel's interests. Oh, so look, given that he feels comfortable saying that openly, which I'm not interested in having anyone in Congress who prioritizes any foreign country over our own. I'm Armenian American, right? If someone came into Congress and said, you know what? I came into Senate wanting to be the #1 representative of Armenia, I'd be like, but why? No, I don't, we have problems here. And I think I finally figured out what's making Tucker tick, like what the big change with him has been. I think he's looking at the conditions we're all living in this country, the drug overdoses, the extreme poverty, the homelessness. And he's asking himself, Why are we so focused on foreign conflicts or what's happening outside of the United States? Okay, so there's more, because you can tell Ted Cruz is getting a little bit uncomfortable. He's getting increasingly defensive, but then he finally just can't hold back anymore. And he says the quiet part out loud. Let's watch.
How much contact do you think AIPAC leaders have for the government of Israel?
No idea. I imagine some. I think the government of Israel is often frustrated with AIPAC because AIPAC's not nearly strong enough.
Do you think there's any coordination between the government of Israel and AIPAC?
Do they talk? Sure. If you're lobbying for more U.S.-Mexico trade, would you talk to people in the U.S. and Mexico and the government? Sure.
My question is not, is it outrageous that foreign governments lobby the United States? They all do, okay, including Israel. My only question is, why don't we admit that is what's happening? You're denying it, but it's true.
Yeah, and what you're saying is false.
Why aren't they registered as a foreign lobby?
Because they're not.
They're not a foreign lobby.
No, they're not.
I'm only trying to get to the question of what AIPAC is, and I don't think you're being straightforward about it. AIPAC is lobbying on behalf of the interests of a foreign country, and they're not registered. And you're saying, no, that's not true. You're saying that they don't coordinate with the Israeli government.
Of course, I coordinate. Do they talk with them? I don't know what they do. I can tell you.
But why don't you care? Isn't it meaningful if a foreign government...
Hey, I talk with Israel all the time. I talk with foreign countries all the time.
But the law is, and a lot of people have been prosecuted under this law, that if you are lobbying on behalf of foreign government, you must register. That's it.
That was incredible. Senator Cruz has never been asked those questions in an interview, ever. He did not come prepared to be asked about the foreign influence of our foreign policy through groups like AIPAC. That was so important for a conservative or right-wing audience to hear about, because it helps people to understand why policies are what they are in this country, why we pursue the type of foreign policy that we pursue. So I really appreciated that Tucker didn't, he had the follow-ups, he held Senator Ted Cruz's feet to the fire. And I think that it was illuminating for a lot of people who might not have known the extent to which AIPAC basically influences our politicians to carry out policies that don't really benefit Americans, but certainly benefit the country of Israel. And in a lot of cases also destabilize the Middle East, especially when we're talking about regime change wars. So I want to just quickly talk about the big lie that he tried to tell in that line of questioning, right? So Ted Cruz is like, no, it's not a foreign lobby. I mean, these are Americans. They're not doing any coordination with Israel. But they literally are. So one of my favorite journalists, Lee Fong, posted this on X. Let's take a quick look at this. So you'll see a picture there of Israeli politicians, and it's a post. He quote tweeted a post by Israel Katz, and he says, Lee Fong says in his response to it, Ted Cruz told Tucker Carlson that AIPAC doesn't coordinate with the state of Israel, thus does not need to register under FARA. That's plainly not true. They discuss coordination openly. Here's an Israeli minister stating that he asked AIPAC to lobby Congress on the International Criminal Court issue. So Israel Katz wrote that this evening I met with AIPAC leaders, and he names them. The state of Israel owes them much for their longstanding support. I asked them to work with the administration and Congress to take dramatic steps against the decision by the prosecutor of the ICC to demand arrest warrants for Prime Minister Netanyahu and the defense minister. So, I mean, that's just open admission of coordination. You have an Israeli politician openly admitting that these Israeli officials are meeting with, coordinating with members of Congress in order to get the type of policies they want. And it's total. I mean, if this were a group of Russian politicians, it would be considered foreign influence. It would be considered coordination. And failure to register as a foreign agent would be a problem. It might lead to prosecution. But for whatever reason, Israel tends to benefit from this weird double standard. And so this is all to say that Ted Cruz whose top contributor, campaign contributor, is in fact AIPAC, was lying to Tucker, lying to you, lying to the entire audience. Throughout his career, he has taken in $562,593 from AIPAC specifically. Just something to know about. Now, as I know all too well, if you have specific critique or criticism of the great country of Israel, regardless of how credible or valid that criticism is, you're automatically shut down as an anti-Semite. Israel defenders never substantively address the criticism or critique. And so what you're about to see is Ted Cruz essentially try to pull the same tactics. Let's see if it worked.
It's a very weird thing. The obsession with Israel, when we're talking about foreign countries,
it's hardly an obsession.
You're not talking about Chinese, you're not talking about Japanese, you're not talking about the Brits, you're not talking about the French. The question, what about the Jews? What about the Jews?
Oh, I'm an anti-Semite now.
Senator, you're asking the questions, Tucker. You're asking, why are the Jews controlling our foreign policy?
Senator,
that's what you just asked.
Hardly saying that, and I have
That is exactly what you just said.
Well, actually, I can speak for myself and tell you what I am saying.
Good.
It's interesting you're trying to derail my questions by calling me an anti-Semite, which you are.
I did not.
Of course you are. And rather than be honorable enough to say it right to my face, you are in a sleazy feline way implying it or just asking questions about the Jews. I'm not asking questions about the Jews. There's nothing to do with Jews or Judaism. It has to do with the foreign government.
Isn't Israel controlling our foreign policy? That's not about the Jews.
You said, I'm asking you.
And by the way, you're the one that just called me, I think, a sleazy feline. So let's be clear.
It's sleazy to imply that I'm an anti-Semite, which you just did.
No, I just said, why is that the only question you're asking? You answer it. Give me another reason. If you're not an anti-Semite, give me another reason why the obsession is Israel.
I am in no sense obsessed with Israel. We are on the brink of war with Iran. And so these are valid questions.
Let's just briefly discuss the hilarity of someone like Ted Cruz, who just earlier said, I was voted into the Senate to be the #1 representative of Israel, accusing Tucker Carlson of being obsessed with Israel. And by the way, at no point in this conversation did Tucker Carlson say anything about the Jews, ever. And that's another tactic that gets used. I mean, I just experienced it myself when I was debating someone on her take about potentially going to war with Iran over nuclear weapons that don't even exist. All he could do was accuse me of supporting Hamas. I hate Hamas. You guys know what my comments were about Hamas after October 7th. You guys know what my comments were in regard to some of the people who were defending Hamas after October 7th. I am in no way supportive of Hamas. Oh, you love the Iranian regime. No, I just don't want to do a regime change war and further destabilize the Middle East and destabilize a country of 90 to 92 million people with no strategy, no plan in place. But it shuts down the conversation real quick when someone just accuses you of being an anti-Semite. And that's the one smear that for the longest time would stick to people. It would stick even though there was no evidence of it. But I think those who use that tactic have overplayed their hand, because now so many people have spoken out against Israel's war crimes, for instance, that everyone's been called an anti-Semite if they've had the right stance in criticizing Israel and Benjamin Netanyahu for the war crimes that have been committed. So it's lost its power. And I think that as a result, it kind of empowers someone like Tucker Carlson to just be like, no, I'm not an anti-Semite. I know what you're doing here. Answer my questions. And I really appreciated that. You know, for whatever it's worth, this is not me providing cover for anything he said in the past. This is not me co-signing onto everything that he believes. This is me talking specifically about how he handled himself in this interview, and it was fantastic. I have no problem saying it. I wish that this served as an example to all journalists, all people in this profession, because I want to see more of this. I don't want this to be so novel, but it is. It's novel. In fact, watching how he carried out this interview made me self-reflect. How can I do better? How can I challenge my, interviewees and get interesting answers from them? So anyway, I thought that was an illuminating part of the conversation. I think people are waking up to the influence that the Israel lobby has. John Mearsheimer, political scientist, you may have heard of him. He does a lot of media, especially these days. He and his co-author were like run out of town because they're the ones who published that book, The Israel Lobby. It's a fantastic book. It explains how foreign policy gets made in this country, why so much of our foreign policy seems to be beneficial to Israel. And they were just automatically smeared as anti-Semites. I remember reading, before the book was published, there was like a long essay version of the work that they were doing. And that was what we read in one of my graduate school classes. And people were so offended, but I was like, wow, this is really interesting. I mean, it's cited. Obviously, they're providing receipts. This seems to be a bit of a problem. But I think a lot of people are afraid of being smeared as anti-Semites, so they just kind of go along to get along. But when you do that, you're not really living in a country where your government puts you first. And I think that's a huge problem. And that's what Tucker Carlson was trying to get at there. All right, there's more, okay, because I want to get to other portions, other subjects that they discussed. So let's take a quick break. And when we come back, we'll do just that. And then we'll give you an update on the war in Iran, potential war in Iran.
Antisemitism.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the show, our social break. America needs a reboot, says Anna. Big ups to you on Abby Phillips yesterday. Her show is called Newsnight, which I actually had to look up before promoting it on Twitter yesterday. But I actually think her show is the most interesting because it does bring a lot of different, diverse, ideologies together for debate. And sometimes it gets really, really heated, but it didn't really get heated yesterday, which was surprising. But thank you for the compliment. I thought you were great, even though you had to navigate through that weird opinion soup format of the show. I know you wanted to pimp smack that first lady. Yeah, I did not want to pimp slap anybody. But I disagreed with the woman I was sitting next to in the first segment. And look, the downside of cable news shows is just how formatted it is. It's like very constrained, and there's so many people at that table. Everyone wants to talk, everyone wants their turn. So you don't really get to say everything you want to say. I did my best, and I'm getting a lot of props for some of the things I said because I said things that typically are not heard on CNN, especially when it comes to Israel's nuclear weapons, for instance. I talked about some of the war crimes that Israel carried out, and it's like, okay, I mean, sure, we can talk about how scared we all are of Iran having nuclear weapons that they don't have at the moment. Okay, but can we also talk about the government that's carrying out a genocide and endless war crimes with impunity that we're funding? Anyway, I didn't say it with that much attitude, but it was fun. I had a really good time. And you know what? Abby Phillip was wonderful. Tiffany Cross was just so smart, just wonderful. Like I really had a good time. Okay, let me keep going. Art Guy says, we miss you when you're gone, Anna, but it's always good to see you kicking some backsides in other media. Thank you. Little Mac McGee says, afternoon TYT fam. Hope you are all well. And while I still can't stand Tucker Carlson, I have to admit, I did enjoy his showing Ted Cruz to be the utter POS that he is. Yeah, I felt the same way. He's had some other interviews that I really enjoyed. He had Ben Cohen on, for instance. I really love that conversation because I think Cohen is right on, it's his lifelong mission to prevent us from going to wars that we don't really need to be involved in. He's a very peace-loving guy, and I thought that was a good conversation. There were other conversations as well. It's really hit or miss with that podcast. He's had like religious folks on, which obviously is not really going to appeal to me. But I do like when he discusses some of these foreign policy issues because it's a different perspective. Oftentimes I disagree. Sometimes he says things that make me want to dig in a little more. All right. Octo Squiddy says, hear me now, quote me later. This is the beginning of Tucker making a run for president. A lot of people think that that's what the play is here. We're gonna have to wait and see.
Antisemitism. 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 Antisemitism.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the show. I just want to read a few super chats before we move on to the next portion of this insanely good interview carried out by Tucker Carlson. So Rage Rock for now says, I'll give Ted Cruz credit for one thing, not walking out on the conversation. The full video of those two is nearly 2 whole hours. You know what? Fair, because he was being grilled endlessly. Some people would get frustrated and they would walk off. I mean, I would never in a million years do that. I think that's like a sign of weakness. I would if I'm being like genuinely disrespected, although I've experienced that recently and I did not walk off set because I actually wanted to debate the substance of the topic we were debating. But let's go to some other comments. Cthulhu says, happy birthday, me, Anna. Happy birthday. Our birthdays are kind of close. Mine's coming up, unfortunately. New members, welcome to Sessinxis and also Sarah Bartlett. Thank you for being members. I hope you guys enjoy the show. We got a lot more content to get to. So without further ado, let's get to two other parts of this interview that I think is worth drawing attention to. So during Tucker Carlson's interview of Texas Senator Ted Cruz, one of our favorites, the topic of the Bible came up. And usually I wouldn't be all that interested. I don't want to hear two grown men talking about the Bible, right? It's not for me, it's for other people. However, Ted Cruz brought up the Bible in the context of why he supports the country of Israel so aggressively. Fair enough. Now, one thing that I know for sure about Tucker Carlson is that he is a man of faith. He's not faking it. He talks about his faith all the time. And since he's knowledgeable about the Bible, he thought he would challenge Ted Cruz a little bit. So without further ado, let's take a look.
Growing up in Sunday school, I was taught from the Bible, those who bless Israel will be blessed, and those who curse Israel will be cursed. And from my perspective, I want to be on the blessing side of things.
Of those who bless the government of Israel?
Those who bless Israel is what it says. It doesn't say the government of it, it says the nation of Israel. So that's in the Bible. As a Christian, I believe that.
Where is that?
I can find it to you. I don't have the scripture off the tip of my, you pull out the phone and use the Google.
It's in Genesis. But so you're quoting a Bible phrase. You don't have context for it and you don't know where in the Bible it is, but that's like your theology? I'm confused. What does that even mean?
Tucker.
I'm a Christian. I want to know what you're talking about.
Okay. Where does my support for Israel come from? Number one, because biblically we're commanded to support Israel. But number two,
hold on. Hold on. You're a senator and now you're throwing out theology, and I am a Christian and I am allowed to weigh in on this. We are commanded as Christians to support the government of Israel?
We are commanded to support Israel.
Is the nation
the
God's referring to in Genesis, is that the same as the country run by Benjamin Netanyahu right now?
Yes.
It is. Okay.
That is psychotic. Okay, what Ted Cruz said there is psychotic. Really, you're gonna hide behind the Bible to explain your unwavering commitment to a man who's running a government that's carrying out a genocide right now? Really? That's what your theology is. See, people like Ted Cruz, unfortunately, for those who are actually genuine about their faith, a detriment. People like Ted Cruz turn people off to religion. I mean, obviously there are other reasons why people don't believe in religion. They might be agnostic, atheist, spiritual, whatever. But part of the reason why I personally got turned off by Christianity, which by the way, I grew up going to Sunday school every Sunday from like 3 to 19. Okay. At no point did I learn in Sunday school that to be a good Christian, you have to support the government of Israel. Ted Cruz just made that up. He just made that up. And so he's hiding behind his religion to carry out whatever he wants to carry out for whatever reason he wants to carry it out. I mean, obviously he's backed by AIPAC to a pretty significant degree, has taken more than $500,000 in campaign contributions from them throughout his Senate career. But don't hide behind your religion, bro. Like, just tell the truth. I mean, tell the truth. Tell us why you think it's so important to prioritize a foreign country over the country that you were elected to serve. I love the fact that Tucker Carlson challenged him on that. Because I don't know, I'm not in Tucker's head, so I can only speculate. If you are sincere about your faith, as Tucker is, hearing someone like Ted Cruz cite Christianity, especially in this context of what the Israeli government is currently doing, to provide cover for what the Israeli government is currently doing, it's just unacceptable. It really is. I would be so offended by that if I were still a practicing Christian. But it doesn't end there. It really doesn't end there. I mean, there were so many topics that came up, and I want to go to one more because this one has really been grating on my nerves. And I'm going to say that both political parties are absolutely guilty of perpetuating what I suspect to be a lie because we haven't seen a shred of evidence on it. So let me set this up. So Senator Ted Cruz is getting interviewed by Tucker Carlson, lengthy 2-hour interview. They touched on so many different topics, but then obviously, because of what's happening geopolitically right now, the issue of a potential regime change war with Iran came up. So at that point, Tucker Carlson just wanted some information from Ted Cruz about, there's this narrative that Iran has tried to assassinate the president. And I just want to know more about that. Like, what's the evidence? Has anyone been arrested? And honestly, my favorite part about all of this is just watching Senator Cruz go from being so confident, like unearned confidence, to just squirming like crazy. So let's watch.
What is true is Iran is trying to assassinate Donald J. Trump, and they have hired hitmen. Now, you pointed out...
No, he said that they have tried twice to kill him, and I don't know that, I don't have any evidence that's true, but I sort of wonder if that is true. Why aren't we at war with them already?
You rightly pointed out there's no evidence that this clown in Butler, Pennsylvania, who shot the president was working for the Iranians. I don't think he was. There's no evidence of that. But what is true, and what your newsletter didn't acknowledge, is it true or false that Iran is currently trying to murder Donald J. Trump and has paid hitmen to do so?
Well, that's the question, and I don't know the Butler, Pennsylvania thing.
Butler, Pennsylvania.
Let's just put that aside. I don't know.
So Netanyahu misspoke when he said those 2 assassinations were because of Iran. But what he was saying that is right is they're actively trying to murder Donald J. Trump.
Is there? Okay, so you're aware of a plot to kill Trump?
Yes, that Iran is paying for. And by the way,
when?
It has been over the last, I'd say, 18 months to 2 years.
In the United States?
In the United States, yes. They and let me point out.
Has anyone been arrested?
For the Trump attempted assassination, no.
If there's a plot to kill Trump by the Iranians,
okay, so you dispute that the Iranians are trying to kill Trump?
Of course. I mean, that's the most important question. The Prime Minister of Israel just said there have been 2 assassination attempts against Donald Trump by the Iranians. And I think it's a very fair question, maybe you disagree, to ask, what are you talking about?
Okay, and I agree with you that he misspoke.
Okay, genuinely, because I might be missing it. And if I'm missing it, I want to make sure I give the appropriate people credit. Has anyone else, other than people like us at TYT and maybe a few other independent people in independent media, has anyone else asked for evidence of these claims that Iran, is plotting to assassinate President Donald Trump? Whether they're on the left or the right in media, whether we're talking about politicians, by the way, because I remember the first allegation that Iran was plotting to assassinate Trump came in the context of the Biden administration. And then just recently, you have the most dishonest person imaginable in terms of like, being a leader of a country, Benjamin Netanyahu. I mean, the guy's been lying to us for literally decades. He's been telling us that Iran is about to have nuclear weapons for 33 years. That guy lies. So right now, he wants the United States to carry out offensive strikes against Iran. Not only do they want us to give them these insane bunker buster bombs that cost $3.5 million each, that are like 30,000 pounds, okay? Homeboy wants us to actually engage in a regime change war. The nuclear stuff, that's just the cover. That's just the cover. This is all about overthrowing the Ayatollah with really no plan in place, no idea of what comes after. So in order to like egg people like Trump on, the Iranians, they're planning to assassinate you. Okay, can we see the evidence? Can we see the evidence? And get a load of Senator Cruz. Get a load of Senator Cruz. Once he's backed into a corner, he provides cover for Netanyahu. Well, Netanyahu, he misspoke. He misspoke. Did he? Did he misspeak? Doubt it. I doubt he misspoke. I really hope that Trump isn't as buffoonish as I think he is, and he doesn't fall for these ridiculous lies from Netanyahu. We're gonna have to wait and see, but he has not inspired much confidence. He really hasn't. And so we'll wait and see. But I am so sick of these insane, outlandish claims being made by people in positions of power, by foreign leaders, without providing even a shred of evidence to back it up. And what Tucker Carlson was trying to get at here, and I thought it was a masterful strategy. If you listen to the entirety of that portion of their conversation, he was basically trying to make a point about how, okay, so let me get this straight. There have been assassination plots against the United States president by a foreign country, a foreign government. And we're not at all interested in going to war with them over that. But we want to do a regime change war in Iran over nuclear weapons that don't exist. That was the bottom line. And Ted Cruz realized it. And I think he realized how laughable that idea is. That we would be more concerned about a prime minister who's been lying to us for 33 years about Iran having nuclear weapons or coming close to having nuclear weapons. We'd be more concerned about that, carrying out a potential regime change war on. By the way, Ted Cruz wants that regime change war in Iran. He does. So he is in favor of military engagement in a regime change war in Iran to appease Israel. But if he genuinely thought, if he really believed that Iran was plotting to assassinate Donald Trump, wouldn't he want to go to war with Iran over that? Wouldn't he want to do something about that? I thought that was so well done by Tucker Carlson. I don't believe that there's any evidence of Iran wanting to or having any plans or plots to assassinate the president of the United States. I could be wrong, but I'm not just going to believe what government officials tell me. I'll never believe a word that comes out of Netanyahu's mouth, ever, ever, ever. I need to see the receipts. And quite frankly, we haven't seen any receipts. So there you have it. That was so well done. I highly recommend you guys check out the whole conversation. People, of course, look, I get it. In America, our political system, our politicians, people in positions of power, they do cynical, gross things all the time. So I get it. It's hard to ever believe that someone who seemed like so dug into his neoconservative ideology has changed. I'm starting to believe that on those foreign policy issues, Tucker Carlson really has changed. He talks about his remorse for being a neocon all the time. And at some point, you just have to believe him. There's been enough time, enough years of him questioning US foreign policy for me to actually believe him when he says he's concerned about getting engaged in these wars that we shouldn't be engaged in while our country falls apart. So anyway, check out the whole conversation. Obviously not right now because we've got other stories to get to, which we will do after we come back from this break.
Antifa!
God. That was Bart with the drop, okay? That was hilarious. Okay, Stinky Feet writes in and says, Ted Cruz is a sneaky, slimy, sticky, squirmy, wormy, slick, sweaty, stinky, corrupt politician who in Texas keeps reelecting this guy and why? Shaking my head. I don't know. I really don't know. YTP Renewed says, to be fair, the Bible portrays God as genocidal. Certainly in the Old Testament. I hear what you're saying, but clearly what Ted Cruz was talking about was different. In fact, let me go to our members section because there were some really good comments about that. Actually, this is our Twitch community where PB Cupcake says, amazing that the Bible could see the creation of Israel 2,000 years in the future. Hilarious. Galfar says, I do not care why Tucker is, I think this is a typo. I do not care why Tucker is daying. He is against the USA. Oh, what he's doing or saying. Okay, there we go. He's against the USA jumping into this war. Just that he is, and he can convince his viewers to also be against it. Galfar, yes. Thank you. Thank you for seeing the benefit of what he's doing here. Because, I mean, I've talked about this before. I've done this show for 18 years and we have a very left-wing audience, which I love, but you're not going to change anything until you win over the hearts and minds of people who tend to disagree with you, right? You have to reach across the aisle. And I'm not talking about it in the context of like congressional Democrats capitulating to like corporate Republicans. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about ordinary people, right? If you want to win on policy, you're going to have to unite with people that you have, common ground with on some of the issues, right? So in this case, if we can work with some component of, Trump's base, conservatives, whatever it is, I don't care. I don't even care what their political identity is. If we agree on wanting to prevent a regime change war in Iran, then we should find strategies and ways to work together to prevent that from happening. And I do think that what Tucker Carlson is doing right now is essentially getting really important information to a conservative audience. And I love that. All right, let's go to Metal Turtle 571 who says, Tuck is doing the Bannon right now. If I can't be in the club, I'm gonna burn this bitch to the ground. Yeah, I would have previously thought that, but I think part of the reason why Murdoch basically threw Tucker under the bus when you have people like Maria Bartiromo, who said far worse lies and was also named in that Dominion lawsuit. I think the reason why is because Tucker was increasingly doing more and more of these like isolationist type segments and monologues. Okay, when we talk about the neocon boomers, at the helm, like at the top of that list is Rupert Murdoch.
Bacon.
Okay, Bart needs to save that one because I think that might be my favorite now. Okay, the random bacon drop was so good.
Bacon.
Anyway, that's bacon. That was a DJ Bart Kyle on the ones and twos. Now let's stop having fun because we're about to talk about war with Iran. So we've got some updates on that. We're also I don't want to forget about what's happening in Gaza as we're barreling closer to a war with Iran, because the people of Gaza should not be forgotten. So we're going to get to that as well. Let's start with the updates on Iran, though.
Mr. President, have you given answered questions about whether you are moving closer, or you believe the U.S. is moving closer to striking Iranian nuclear facilities? Where's your mindset?
Well, obviously, I can't say that, right?
But
You don't seriously think I'm going to answer that question? Will you strike the Iranian nuclear component? And what time exactly, sir? Sir, would you strike it? Would you please inform us so we can be there and watch?
But would you say
You don't know that I'm going to even do it. You don't know. I may do it. I may not do it. I mean, nobody knows what I'm going to do. I can tell you this, that Iran's got a lot of trouble.
Well, he's right about one thing. No one knows what he's going to do, because our president is not guided by any particular ideology, feels like he shoots from the hip. And even though a huge component of his base consists of individuals who do not want war and specifically voted for him because they don't want war, he might wake up tomorrow and say, you know what? I want to bomb Iran. Why not? He might do it tonight. I might get another surprise during our bonus episode today. But nonetheless, that was our President Donald Trump at the White House this morning, just flippantly responding to a question about whether or not the United States is about to engage in a hot offensive war with Iran, which would be, in my opinion, a complete and utter disaster. Now, last night he posted on social media that we have total and complete control of the skies above Iran, following a post that simply said, this is so clownish. Unconditional surrender in all caps. Okay, so let's just pause and talk about the stupidity of this. Like the stupidity of the ask, okay? So Israel carries out a surprise offensive attack on Iran. They take out nuclear scientists, high-level officials. Civilians died because they also made sure to bomb the nuclear scientists' home as they were at home sleeping with their families. Entire apartment buildings. So there were hundreds of people have already been killed in Iran. What would make Donald Trump think that Iran, which let's not pretend like Iran is not a country with decent military capability. Why wouldn't they want to defend themselves? Why would they agree to continue negotiations? And by the way, what does unconditional surrender even mean? It's just, this is what I mean when I say that he is not really guided by any particular ideology or strategy. Sometimes that yields interesting results. Sometimes it yields devastating results. And that's what I'm worried about here. So he was asked by reporters what exactly that meant. And well, his answer wasn't really reassuring.
What does unconditional surrender mean?
Well, you know what it means.
Can you explain it for those who don't?
Very simple. Unconditional surrender. That means I've had it. Okay, I've had it. I give up. No more. Then we go blow up all the all the nuclear stuff that's all over the place. They're totally defenseless. They have no air defense whatsoever. Totally captured. We've totally captured the air.
We're gonna bomb a lot of their nuclear stuff. It's all over the place. Multiple sources, including a senior intelligence official and a Department of Defense official, told media outlets last night that the US is indeed seriously considering getting involved in the offensive against Iran. And if we do, by the way, one possible target is a nuclear site that I'm sure you guys have heard of before. It's the Fordo site. And it's an underground uranium enrichment site that's believed to be the most likely location for a hypothetical nuclear weapons program. Because guys, Wall Street Journal actually published an incredible piece yesterday. And in that piece, they go into the details of how the Israelis had shared intel with the United States, with the Trump administration, indicating that Iran was weeks away from having nuclear weapons. And you want to know something? The Trump administration rejected it because it totally conflicted with what our intelligence community had found. And I'm sure you guys have seen that video of, the director of Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, she's speaking before Congress and she's like, there's no indication that they're building a nuclear weapon. She did admit that they've enriched uranium quite a bit to 60%. You need it at 90% in order to have weapons grade uranium. But she even addressed the 2003 suspension of Iran's nuclear program. She notes that the Ayatollah did not lift that suspension. They haven't started building any type of nuclear weapon. I mean, obviously, there's conflicting intel here. We have US intel, and then you have intel coming from the Israelis who want us to go to war on their behalf. And anyone who tries to gaslight you and tell you that's not true, look, all you have to do is go on X, go on social media, follow what some of these, Israeli politicians are saying. There was a picture I came across today on X featuring like these big banners that were posted in Israel, essentially encouraging President Trump to join the war. I mean, look, Israel cannot defeat Iran by itself. And Netanyahu knew that, which is why he did this surprise attack. And he's hoping that the US gets dragged into it and that, Trump is going to be forced to, help Israel. I don't think that they're going to be able to defeat Iran. I'm just keeping it real. I think they might destroy Iran, but I don't know what happened to the Houthis in Yemen. Houthis, guys. Houthis are backed by Iran. It's an Iranian proxy in Yemen. We went to war with them for years and we didn't defeat them. So what gives anyone the idea that it would be a cakewalk? That it would just be maybe a few months, do a quick little regime change sesh. No, it would be incredibly difficult. A lot of innocent people would die. You would need boots on the ground. You can't do what Israel's doing with aerial bombardments of Gaza, along with shooting hungry Palestinians to death as they're at humanitarian aid hubs, hoping to get their hands on some flowers so they don't die. But this is crazy. This is absolutely insane. So American assistance could, by the way, include providing air cover for Israeli commandos who go into Iran on the ground. But officials said the more probable outcome is a strike by US B-2 stealth bombers armed with the massive ordnance penetrator, a weapon that theoretically has the ability to bore into the mountain that shelters the underground Fordo facility. People think that this is a crazy thing to say. I don't think it's crazy anymore at all. You have to keep in mind that a lot of countries that are governed in ways that we don't agree with, like Pakistan, for instance, Pakistan has nukes. Yeah. Israel does not want Iran to have a deterrent, and nuclear weapons are deterrents. And quite frankly, look, there's no evidence that they're close to building a nuclear weapon. Even if they were at 90% enriched uranium today, it would still take them many months, maybe even several years to be able to build the nuclear weapons. So I'm not even worried about them having a nuclear weapon right now. However, let's say worst case scenario for the Israelis, they have a nuclear weapon already. Do I think they're going to drop a nuke on Israel? No, I don't. I don't think they're going to do that. I think they are under the impression that Israel is out of control, is currently governed by a belligerent prime minister, along with other members of that government, some of whom have been convicted of terrorism, wanting to just wreck that region of the world on their behest, on their behalf. It's just ridiculous. So don't you think that some of Israel's behavior might encourage a country like Iran, which has been the target, the focus of Benjamin Netanyahu for 33 years? Don't you think they might want to build a weapon to deter someone like Netanyahu from invading? And yes, I know. Iranians in the past, especially under Ahmadinejad, who is no longer the president of Iran, okay, he's been out of power for a long time. You would hear the chants of like death to America. But if we're gonna start engaging in regime change wars over chance, does that mean, hey, you know what? the Israeli government, a lot of those politicians have said some pretty crazy genocidal things. Should we invade that country? It's just so dumb. And that's the only answer. It's always war. War is the only answer. War is the only answer. And like Trump pressuring Iran to engage in diplomatic talks to get a new nuclear deal. Look, I want to encourage that because I don't want war. But can he at least for once in his life, recognize that ripping up the JCPOA, the original nuclear deal with Iran, was a complete and utter disaster? This guy loves to break things. And then if he succeeds in fixing it, he gives himself props. Like, I broke what I fixed. I fixed what I broke. But in this case, it doesn't appear he's going to be able to fix it. Again, as we've said many times, despite Netanyahu's repeated claims that Iran is days away from acquiring a nuclear weapon, that is not true based on actual facts. So a US intelligence assessment from earlier this year found that Iran is not building nuclear weapons. That was what Tulsi Gabbard was testifying about in Congress. And just yesterday, the Director General of the International Atomic Energy Agency, which the Israelis love to cite lately, doubled down on those findings. That's interesting. Let's take a look.
I mean, there is this competition about who is wrong or right about the time that would be needed. Certainly, it was not for tomorrow, maybe not a matter of years. I would there be perhaps more serious about this, and I don't think it was a matter of years. But this is speculation. Why? These things we don't know. Because if there was some activity which was clandestine or hidden or away from our inspectors, we couldn't know. What we informed and what we reported was that we did not have, as in coincidence with some of the sources you mentioned there, that we did not have any proof of a systematic effort to move into a nuclear weapon.
But Israel has conflicting intel. I mean, they don't have a conflict of interest or anything. So we should just believe them and then go to war with Iran. Absolute insanity, like just so crazy. Let's also not forget that Iran has been part of the non-proliferation treaty. Israel has not. Also, Israel's the one with nuclear weapons that they don't acknowledge. And the fact that they're not in the non-proliferation treaty, the fact that they do not have international inspectors come in as they do with a country that might be developing a nuclear weapon. It's the double standard drives me crazy. And by the way, why does Israel have nuclear weapons? Do I think Israel is genuinely going to use nuclear weapons? No, they've learned other ways to kill off possibly an entire ethnic group. However, I know that Israel probably has those nukes as a deterrent. I don't want to live in a world where nukes even exist. I hate nuclear weapons. I wish we could just get rid of them across the board, but we don't live in that world. And when you have an aggressor in the region, and yes, Israel is the aggressor in this region, and they're constantly trying to annex parts of Middle Eastern countries, as they've done with Syria, they've tried to do with Lebanon. Obviously, they've been occupying the West Bank. They're going to take it over entirely, annex that. They're going to annex Gaza. Don't you think that maybe the belligerence of the government of Israel is encouraging or could encourage other countries in the region to desire a deterrent like a nuclear weapon? Things don't just happen in a vacuum. We have to talk about cause and effect here. But we live in America and we're discouraged from doing that when it comes to this specific context, when it's involving Israel. We should not go to war. It would be such a disaster at a time when we can't afford it, our country's falling apart. This would be lunacy. But getting back to the escalating conflict, unsurprisingly, after Trump ramped up his threatening rhetoric yesterday, that's when he did so, Iranian leader Ayatollah Khamenei responded in kind, because that's what happens. Let's take a look.
The President of the United States, in unacceptable remarks, explicitly calls on the Iranian nation to surrender. But we say to him, first, make threats to those who are afraid of them. Threats have never influenced the behaviour or thinking of the Iranian people. Second, telling the Iranian nation to surrender is not a rational statement. Wise individuals who are familiar with the Iranian people and their history would never utter such words, because the Iranian nation is not one that surrenders and will never submit to anyone's aggression.
Right, and again, what does surrender even mean? What does that even mean? Like, hey, listen, bro, we'd rather not spend trillions of dollars in a prolonged regime change war with you. So can we just like skip ahead to the regime change without the war? Which, by the way, I mean, if that would be amazing and miraculous if that happened, but that would never happen. That would never happen. All right, so meanwhile, let's talk a little bit about the war hawkery that's happening in this country, because the battle between the isolationists and the war hawks is continuing to heat up. And honestly, that is a silver lining in this whole situation, because it does prove to me that there is a portion of Trump's base, more importantly, I'm talking about the voters, but even in elected office, you have some politicians who are willing to push back against this narrative that's being forced upon us by Israel, by the war hawks. So anyway, this is one of my favorite videos. I watched it several times in a row because it's like a parody of himself. This is Mark Levin. He's one of the top war hawks. He was on Fox last night. Get a load of this guy.
Donald Trump is a forever war president. How so? He's going to do what every president before him since Carter didn't have the guts to do. He's going to put an end to this damn thing. And that's what needs to happen. That's not a warmonger. That's a peacemaker. That is a man who's going to make sure this generation and future generations are protected from nuclear missiles coming out of the Middle East, from barbarian primitives from the 7th century. That's what he wants to do. And then I hear the questions. Well, won't this create a bigger war? Really, with who? The Israelis are kicking their asses left and right, and the US hasn't even gotten involved directly. Yeah, so where are they? They're nowhere. How about China? Nowhere. How about Russia? Nowhere. What happened to World War III? There is no World War III. They all sound like a bunch of Marxist Islamists. They don't sound like patriotic Americans. Let me be clear. This is good versus evil. You're either a patriotic American who's going to get behind the President of the United States, the Commander-in-Chief, or you're not. Folks, this is black and white. You're either on the side of the red, white, and blue, or you're on the other side. It's that simple.
Marxist Islamists. Why is he yelling? Like, why is he always animated? I get it. Look, we live in a glass house, okay, especially Jake more than me. But I get heated. It's usually tied to something that's making me angry. In this case, you have Mark Levin, who seems to be getting what he wants. Why are you still angry? And let's talk about barbaric behavior. Let's do that. Because let's focus on Iran first, because there is barbaric behavior in Iran. I'm not an idiot. Okay, I don't think that the entirety of Iran is like this backwards, terrible country. People are primitive. Like, no, I don't believe that at all. It's actually a pretty diverse country. The people of Iran absolutely do want different leadership. They do want regime change, but they do not want Israel to come in and do it. They're like terrified of that. And by the way, how is Israel trying to do this? Hundreds of people, innocent people have already been killed. I'm not talking about, the targets that Israel was focusing on. I'm talking about all the innocent civilians who have already died in Iran as a result of these strikes. They're not in any way wanting Israel to come in and install some puppet government. So let's just get that out of the way, because I keep seeing, Israel defenders and people who want this war come to me with like, oh, but look at this poll. Look at what the Iranian people are saying. They want this. No, they say they want regime change. Not done by you. Not done by you. Very simple. Anyway, then you have the other Oh yeah, so in Iran, look, we covered that story of the young woman who was executed because she wasn't wearing her headdress perfectly. A little bit of her hair was showing. She was imprisoned. There were mass protests around it, and eventually she was executed. And that was so barbaric and so gross. And a lot of countries across the globe do barbaric and gross things. We don't threaten to invade them. We don't risk the lives of our soldiers to invade them. It's not our job to be the world's police. But now let's talk about the barbarism and barbaric behavior on the other side. Are the Israelis who are currently carrying out a genocide in Gaza really going to tell us about how this is a war between civilization and barbarism? Who are the barbarians here? Because I see a lot of barbaric activity happening and carried out by the IDF. Dude, they bombed the Iranian embassy in Syria. They bombed it. Think about how crazy that is. And in retaliation, you want to know what Iran did? That scary country that's going to drop a nuke on the United States and Israel. You want to know what they did in retaliation? They waited a while. And then they let the United States and Israel know 72 hours in advance, we're going to do these drone strikes. Here's where the drone strikes are going to be. The US shot them down. Not a single civilian was harmed. Not a single person was harmed. There was a little bit of property damage. But like, what are we doing here? Are we really pretending like the Israelis and the IDF, they're angels? They would never do anything barbaric. Like they would never do something as disgusting and barbaric as shooting and killing over 100 Palestinians in Gaza yesterday alone, as they were at those humanitarian hubs trying to get flour so they don't die of starvation. You know what that is? That's barbaric. That's barbaric. Yeah, go ahead. Call me an anti-Semite when I give you a specific thing that happened just yesterday in Gaza that is barbaric. Don't talk to me ever about how this is a war between civilization and barbarism. There's plenty of barbaric garbage happening right now at the hands of the IDF. That doesn't provide cover for the barbaric stuff that happens at the hands of, the Shiite leadership in Iran. But if we're gonna use this case as justification for invading Iran, well, the same argument could be made for Israel. So I would be real careful. All right, I got worked up. Sorry, I kind of lost my place. Now, luckily, as Cenk shared with you guys on the show yesterday, I don't care. John Fetterman can kick rocks. Like I can't stand the guy. He wants to like drone strike them. But luckily, as Cenk shared with you guys on the show yesterday, the overwhelming majority of American people are not on the side of the hawks. Now, they might agree that it's not good for Iran to have nuclear weapons, but they do not want to engage in war with Iran. So a new Economist YouGov poll released yesterday found that only 16% of Americans back US involvement in the war. That's the most important number, okay? 60% say the US should not be involved. And only 23% of Republicans said we should join the war. 23% of Republicans. Thank God, okay? Thank God. I don't know if it's gonna sway Trump in any direction. I really hope he listens to his base. But I've grown to be super pessimistic about pretty much everyone in positions of power in our government. So I hope I'll be pleasantly surprised, but something tells me I won't be. We'll see. All right, we gotta take a break. When we come back, talk about some war crimes.
What contributions to the progressive cause are you most proud of? I mean, I don't have super high aspirations for a singular role that I can play in the movement or anything. I try to present myself as what I think that I am, which is a progressive man who is driven by I think, well-interrogated and well-organized system of values that I try to stay consistent on, and I demonstrate that that's the sort of life that a person can lead and be successful and be happy and all of that. And that should not need to be done, but there are so many people on the right that are trying to push men in the opposite direction that I want to be able to do that. Along the way, if I can get people to care about some topics that they wouldn't necessarily care about, or that for some men they might think that's not a topic that they should be focused on, that's definitely something that I relish doing. And along the way, I mean, we've been able to introduce people to a lot of candidates. That's been a big part of what we've done. Not all of them necessarily got in office. Probably most of them did not. And a lot of them, you might not even remember their names. But it was great to be able to provide people the platform where they had the chance of, making a difference. Obviously AOC and all that, but there's been a lot of great people along the way.
In the bonus episode for the members, we do some inside baseball. We're gonna look at John's desk. Nice little spaceship here. Nerd, but it is kind of look cool. Who has Legos? Oh no, he's taking apart a keyboard. Who has a mouse pad that's this big? He's got a dog with a nose that you can hang something on. You know what this desk screams to me? Nerd. And that's how we like him. We love Johnny Pie. He's got his own personality like everybody does at TYT. Come meet us all in the bonus episodes. TYT.com/team. David Soror.
Dr. Phil.
Adam Green drop by.
Charlemagne.
Congressman, great to have you. It's great to be with you, Chang.
Your show is a great thing. You're informing people. A lot of the shows that I live on, my CNN, my MSNBC, and even Fox, and any of the other shows, NPR, they are so quick to decide that they know what this building means today.
The one thing that I hate that politicians do, they talk about the people they should be talking to.
Do they have any idea that they're the establishment and that they're hated, or do they not realize that at all?
People are so deeply in their little universe. I think it's very easy to not really question what you're doing.
Voters have a right to ask questions of any nominee, whether they're independent, Republican, or Democrat.
The system is duopoly that suppresses competition.
How is it the year 2024 and we're still like, maybe they'll talk about paid medical? Like, how is that like at one level, it's like, this is what we're talking about now. You're like, it's 2024. And that's always been the critique, your critique of us is, well, you guys give good speeches, you put out good tweets, but you're not wielding actual power. Now we're starting to.
Yes. Congratulations on all your success. You guys are everywhere.
It's about a country and a principle, and that's what you and I both worked to achieve. And I'm so glad that at least half the battle has now been won.
If you want to go really hear what's going on, honestly, you should tune in to the Young Turks.
Thanks for doing such a great job. Please keep it up. Hang tough.
Yeah.
That makes me so happy.
Oh, I like making you happy.
I didn't know about
This
that.
is a happy Accusations. You're welcome, YouTube.
Join the Dragon Squad by becoming a YouTube channel member. Click the join button below or sign up on tyt.com/join to get access to fun emojis, a member-only chat, exclusive shop TYT designs, ad-free watching, and so many other amazing perks. Plus, you get bragging rights for being part of the coolest community on the internet and help us drive real, positive change in the world. The Dragon Squad awaits, so join today.
Remember when you were with the Beatles? Yeah, sure. That was awesome.
Well, everyone, I got a little worked up in that last segment on a story that we were planning to talk about anyway. So I'm just going to quickly give you an update on that because, look, these war crimes, we can't just pretend like they're not happening. We can't forget about the Palestinian people who are still dealing with absolute carnage in Gaza, of course, but also in the occupied West Bank, which is to be annexed, obviously, by the Israeli government. Already, there was the announcement of 22 illegal settlements. You guys get the point. Now, with that in mind, let's give you an update on Gaza.
The goal of the Israeli government is abundantly clear: the destruction of life in Gaza. For a year and a half now, our commission has been investigating the violence in Gaza. We have seen constant escalation and more deaths and injuries. In the last 3 months, the entire population of Gaza was forcibly transferred into small enclaves, and Palestinians were killed while attempting to receive aid, bringing life to its bleakest point to date.
Now, if you talk to an Israeli, they'll tell you, no, it's not the IDF. It's Hamas that's shooting at desperate, hungry Palestinians as they're trying to get flour from these humanitarian aid hubs. But you just heard someone from the UN. So the situation in Gaza has never been worse, according to Navi Pillay, who is the chair of the Commission of Inquiry on the Occupied Palestinian Territory at the United Nations. So she is calling the war in Gaza the most ruthless, prolonged, and widespread attack against the Palestinian people since 1948. And she laid out the findings of her commission report that were released to the Human Rights Council last month. Now, I'm gonna quickly pause for further context, because if you notice, the Israeli government loves to trash the UN or any UN organization. And it's because the UN is an international body that sometimes does investigations into Israel's conduct, and they don't like that. They don't like to be held accountable. They hate it. Oh my God, you're calling us out on our war crimes? No, we're the civilized ones. We're not the barbarians. No, sometimes you guys act like barbarians. In fact, right now, acting like barbarians. Just keep it real. You don't like the truth, too bad. We're gonna slap you with it. So she starts with how Israel's ongoing assault has impacted children. Let's take a look.
Children have paid an unimaginable price. More than 1,300 children have been killed just from the end of the ceasefire on 18th March to date. And more than 15,000 children have been identified as having been killed since October 2023. Our findings show that as Israeli security forces killed thousands of children, they also obliterated the education system in Gaza. More than 90% of schools and university buildings in Gaza have been damaged or destroyed, creating conditions where education for children has been made impossible.
There are videos of IDF soldiers going into hospitals and literally breaking any equipment that remains. Why would they do that? Was Hamas hiding in the monitors of the gadgets that they need at that hospital? Is that what happened? Come on. Like, don't insult the intelligence of people who have actually been paying attention to what's happening on the ground there. We all see it. And now you have a UN report to back it up. Notably, while Israeli forces often claimed that they were targeting Hamas operatives allegedly based in schools, the commission verified only one instance of Hamas using a school for military purposes. That is unsurprising to say the least, but they'll still perpetuate that lie. And that's the thing about how Israel is losing this PR war. Because number one, I mean, it's difficult to defend the indefensible. But number two, they're lazy. Like, they've got like 3 or 4 talking points and they just rotate those same talking points over and over again. Human shields, Hamas tunnels, using it as a command center, blah, 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 blah. You guys are acting like barbarians and you're carrying out a genocide. That's what's happening. From their findings, they concluded that Israel's targeting of civilian infrastructure and educational facilities is intentional, not accidental, and that they are indeed committing a slew of war crimes. Take a look.
Israeli airstrikes have targeted educational facilities believed to be safe refuge areas, killing the displaced, including children and women, and deliberately shelled, burned, and demolished schools and universities. The Commission could not identify any military necessity which justifies such actions, and we conclude that these actions show an intent to destroy these facilities in order to curtail Palestinians' access to education in the long term. These attacks were part of a widespread and relentless assault against the Palestinian people, in which Israeli forces have committed war crimes, including directing attacks against civilians and willful killing, and the crime against humanity of extermination.
In fact, yesterday, Tuesday of this week, was such a gruesome day at these humanitarian aid hubs that upward of 100 people were killed by IDF as they're waiting in line to get flour. The story was, by the way, awful enough when the reported death toll was in the dozens, and then it got updated and it was over 100 in a single day. Absolutely sick. So witnesses said that Israeli forces carried out an airstrike on a nearby home before opening fire toward the crowd. Before I read this, remember, a doctor working in the emergency room witnessed 7 little bodies show up in that hospital, dead bodies. They were all her children. And then later she found out 2 more of her children died in a single Israeli airstrike. She only has 1 remaining child left. Her husband had survived the airstrike, was hospitalized, but then later died. I mean, just disgusting. Like, I can't, it disgusts me. It disgusts me. That's really the only way I can express myself and not be overly offensive. It disgusts me. This is barbaric. Witnesses said that the Israeli forces carried out an airstrike on a nearby home before opening fire toward the crowd. The Israel Defense Forces said that it was aware of reports of a number of injured individuals from IDF fire following the crowd's approach, and that the incident was under review. That's another talking point that you'll hear. Oh, oopsie, we got caught doing what appears to be a war crime, or is definitely a war crime. And don't worry, we're going to investigate it and you're never going to hear from it again. What happened to the IDF soldiers in Jenin who were shooting out international ambassadors who were visiting? What happened to them? What happened to that internal review? I mean, their internal reviews are so ridiculous and non-existent that it makes like local police departments in this country blush. It's like insane. In a statement, the IDF said nothing of value, nothing of value. I haven't even read this yet, but I already know nothing of value. But nonetheless, said that a gathering was identified next to an aid distribution truck that got stuck in the area in proximity to IDF troops. The IDF regrets any harm. I'm done. Yeah, I don't. Their statements mean nothing to me. Nothing. Okay, they're terrorists. These people are carrying out acts of terror. They are killing innocent people on purpose. This is not an accident. This has been going on for far too long. They want to wipe the Palestinians off the face of the earth. And whoever remains, get them out of Gaza. We want this land. But it's like, why would Israel be surrounded by so many enemies? Like, why? Why wouldn't anyone why would people have a problem with Israelis? I don't get it. They've been so kind to people in that region. This is far from the first incident. Israeli troops have repeatedly shot and killed civilians approaching those hubs since they opened last month. According to the Gaza Health Ministry, 397 people have been killed seeking aid from the sites, which are located in both southern and central Gaza. And before I hear the ridiculous talking point of like, oh, well, you know, the Palestinian Health Ministry, they're controlled by Hamas. Okay, you also have what remains of the few journalists on the ground in Gaza. A lot of them actually report to drop site news. Yeah, the casualties at these hubs in the hundreds. It's not made up. It's not made up. One other thing I'll just note. Look, I don't know if my speculation here is sound, but I'm going to say it anyway. At the start of this war, at the start of this genocide, there were 2.2 million Palestinians in the Gaza Strip. And if you pay close attention, you'll notice something with how Trump talks about Gaza and how Netanyahu talks about Gaza. They don't say 2.2 million or 2.1 million. They say 1.7 million Palestinians. Are they telling on themselves? Like, why have they landed at 1.7 million Palestinians? At the start of this genocide, there was 2.2 million. We keep hearing that the Gaza Health Ministry is not to be trusted. They inflate their numbers. I don't even know how they count the number of people dead at this point. Like what kind of infrastructure do they have to even be able to do that, given the fact that Gaza is leveled? But I think it's an undercount. I think there's a lot more dead Palestinians in Gaza than we know about. And I think there's a possibility that our president might know the real number. Netanyahu certainly knows the real number. So who knows? But I'm not believing at all that the actual death toll is around like 60,000 Palestinians. I think it's much higher. So look, these war crimes, they've been called out by various people and institutions. The UN did this report, and I'm glad they did this report, but will it change anything? I don't think it will. And that's the worst part about all of this, that this has been going on as long as it's been going on. Think about all the different stories we covered, including the stories of like toddlers showing up at the hospital with gunshot wounds to the head. How do you accidentally shoot dozens of toddlers in the head? I don't know. And this is the country that has the nuclear weapons who's trying to push us into going to war with another country that doesn't have nuclear weapons, but they claim will have them very soon. Okay. Anyway, we got to take a break. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit about how the Daily Wire covered someone in the Joint Chiefs of Staff who got fired for anti-Semitic posts, and they thought that this was an own, except, oh wow, look, it was someone in the Joint Chiefs of Staff who was actually worried about war crimes and he got fired for it. So we'll give you that story and more when we come back.
Shohei Ohtani. Shohei Ohtani.
Okay, so let me just note before I read this awesome super chat, because I agree with the spirit of what this super chat is, but we should also note that after 9/11, one of the worst things that our now useless Congress did is they ceded power to the executive branch as it pertains to invading countries going to war. And that was a big mistake. Ceding power to a single branch of government is obviously going to make Congress as useless as it is right now. You know, they'll pass a budget. Usually it'll like us in the butt. They'll raise the debt ceiling. There might be some change around the edges if we're lucky, but overall, Congress useless. Now, when it comes to going to war, obviously you're supposed to have this system of checks and balances to balance out something crazy that the executive branch might want to do. But Land of the Free, home of my rant, says Article 1, Section 8 grants Congress the sole power to declare war. War Powers Resolution of 1973, passed to check presidential power after Vietnam. Yeah, a lot of people were mad about that war because we shouldn't have been in it. But okay, Vietnam allows the president to deploy forces in response to threats, but must notify Congress within 48 hours and must withdraw troops after 60 days with a 30-day grace period, unless Congress gives approval. Unless the manufactured enemies directly hit us, just saying to stupid Trump. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure some of you might have seen that because of the fact that congressional power in this arena, this specific arena, has been ceded, deteriorated in Congress. They're now trying to pass like a new like War Powers Act type bill. And it seems like it has bipartisan support, which makes me happy. When I say bipartisan support, I'm talking about like Thomas Massie is the one who introduced it. Look, that's the one area where like I love Thomas Massie on that, on his unwillingness to just willy-nilly go to war. So he's part of this effort. We'll see where it goes, but look, I'm tired, I'm cranky, and I'm pessimistic. So I want to say things that give you hope, but today's not the day, all right? Not today. All right, by the way, something that should give you hope. Tomorrow is Juneteenth. So TYT is going to be off air in celebration of Juneteenth. I'm hoping that you all get a day off as well and get to enjoy some time with your family and loved ones. But we will be back on Friday. Oh yeah, we'll be back on Friday. Let me read some more comments. We've got In Guns We Trust, Trump to Zelensky 3 months ago, you're gambling with World War III. Remember that? I'll agree with the left on one thing, Trump's a liar. Thank you, In Guns We Trust. First of all, thank you for the comment overall, but also thank you for proving that not all Trump supporters are in a cult, right? Because I think that a lot of people on the left still think of Trump's base as what it was in the first term. It was a little more cultish back then. Now I'm seeing a lot more dissent, and that's a good thing. Let's get back to the show.
I just do it.
All right, everyone, just a reminder that today in the bonus episode, I'll be showing some of the clips from CNN. I was on CNN last night on Abby Phillips's show called Newsnight. And I mean, I want to say that there was a debate, but there wasn't really much of a debate. There was actually more agreement than I expected, but it was a good conversation. So we'll discuss that and we'll show you some clips. tyt.com/join to become a member. DJ Payne says, if these so-called political tough guys want to go to war, why don't they lace up their pink boots and go fight the war? Why sacrifice our young troops for this crap show? It's sickening. Yeah, I agree with you. And actually, like, my heart breaks for all the young men who just enlisted because they trusted that the Trump administration wasn't gonna go to war. It's just so bad. I really hope we don't go to war. I don't think it would be good to have boots on the ground in Iran. And I don't think that regime change is something we should get involved in. Anyway, all right, let's get to our next story. Let's talk a little bit about this employee at the Joint Chiefs of Staff who just got fired for, I'll let you decide. Let me present the story. So, a Pentagon official has just been removed from his position in the Joint Chiefs of Staff due to his criticism of Israel and his personal issues with how they're carrying out this war against Gaza. You know, we've talked about all of this stuff. We're about to hear from him in just a second. Now, he had posted about this on his personal social media accounts. And apparently it was so offensive that he lost his job over it. So let's talk a little bit about who this guy is. He's Colonel Nathan McCormick. According to a report from the Daily Wire and the Jewish News Syndicate, he was the Levant and Egypt branch chief at the Joint Chiefs of Staff, J5 Planning Directorate. I'm not gonna pretend like I know what that is. Okay, he was in the Pentagon, all right? That's what he was doing. But more importantly, the fact that he was in the Levant and Egypt branch, I think kind of plays a role in why he ended up getting fired for his, in my opinion, common sense criticism of how Israel is carrying out some of their military action. So McCormick, who assumed his position in June 2024, had been very vocal on his opinions on Israel and Netanyahu following the October 7th attack. So here's what he posted on October 11th. Okay, I agree that Israel has an absolute right to respond militarily and that civilians may legally be caught in the crossfire, but you are ignoring the requirement of proportionality. Israel's responses always, not hyperbole, disproportionately target Palestinian civilians. Where's the lie? Where's the lie? First of all, he says Israel has a right to defend itself. It's not like he's one of these people who was like celebrating what Hamas didn't call them freedom fighters. But given how the IDF has conducted themselves in the past, I mean, I immediately had those thoughts. Like the second I saw the headlines of what Hamas was doing, I'm like, oh my God, they're gonna go after the civilians. I mean, it's gonna give Netanyahu the perfect excuse to do what he's been doing for nearly 2 years now. So he posted that again on October 11th, 2023. Prior to assuming his position, he tweeted other things such as, I've lately been considering whether we might be Israel's proxy and not realized it yet. I've definitely realized it. Our worst ally. We get literally nothing out of the partnership other than the enmity of millions of people in the Middle East, Africa, and Asia. You know, I've actually asked this question lately. In a debate I was in just recently, I'm like, okay, I mean, people keep saying Israel is our ally. I can see why we are considered an ally to Israel. We give them, you know, $3 billion a year, just flat out. That's the default amount. In addition to tens of billions of dollars when they decide they want to carry out a genocide, you know, that kind of stuff. What do we get in return? Oftentimes we hear that it's intel. Okay, what kind of intel do we get? The kind that claims that a Middle Eastern country that the Israeli government wants to topple is in possession of weapons of mass destruction. Is that the kind of intel we're talking about? Okay, they can keep their intel to themselves. Like I'm not interested in their intel at all. Fact of the matter is we don't get much out of that relationship. And the way Israelis talk about Americans, I have to say, disgusts me. It really does. Their entitlement, the way that they respond to or refer to Americans who do not want to get dragged into a war with Iran, the utter disrespect. Bitch, it's my money. I'm gonna say what I want to say. Unfortunately for this guy though, he ended up getting fired for it. But I want to give you some more of his criticism, because who knows, maybe he said something that actually was abhorrent, okay? Because I don't want Israeli civilians to be harmed. Even though I loathe their government. I do, I loathe their government. But if he said something disgusting about Israeli civilians or wanted, you know, violence acted upon them, obviously I would condemn it and say, you know what, not a good job for you, you should have been fired. So let's keep reading, let's see what else he posted. The more Israel's death cult escalates towards Hezbollah, the more we will see show of force attacks like this and the 13th of April. Yeah, I mean, again, like, why is that offensive? Where is the lie? This is someone who's concerned about the blowback of Israel's actions. And the post continued while he held this, this position at the Pentagon. So here are some of the more recent posts that he had written back in April and May of this year. So look, we can't see the full context of these tweet threads because the account has since been deleted, but we'll give you what we still have access to. So he writes, Steve, the self-delusion in this series of tweets perfectly encapsulates the problem in Israeli society. The Western states go to great lengths to avoid criticism of Israel, much out of Holocaust guilt. But Israel's actions and policies deserve to be assessed critically. Wow, very offensive. I don't know about you guys. You might be an anti-Semite. I'm kidding, obviously. I have more. Supposed democracy, Israel's actions over decades have promoted the accusations of ethnic cleansing and genocide. Israel's self-consciousness can't abide that criticism, just like its government can survive the process of achieving peace and security. And then I'll read you one more. But Netanyahu and his Judeo-supremacist cronies are determined to prolong the conflict for their own goals, either to remain in power or to annex the land. Where is the lie? And why is this offensive? Like, this is the kind of person I want working at the Pentagon. But he ends up getting fired. So his mistake, it seems, was making it known that he worked at the Pentagon. So despite some attempts to anonymize his account, he did a poor job in anonymizing his account. Let's just keep it real. But anyway, he has repeatedly revealed his name and job title on the platform and has posted photos of himself that match his LinkedIn profile and that include his uniform name tag. Guys, if you post anything online, even if you go to great lengths to make it seem like it's people will find out who you are. Like, there are ways of finding out. There was a Los Angeles Times cover. It was like a photograph of the neighborhood that I love. And it was from the 1950s. And these are people from the 1950s. And I'm like, I want to find out who they were. And I found out who they were. I found out their identities. There was nothing to go off of other than this is the general area they lived in. This is the 1950s. Boom, I found it. So it's just, be careful with what you post online because you might think that you're doing so anonymously, but if people really want to find out, they can. So the JNS also notes his biggest no-no. So other posts include descriptions of his conversations with generals in the Israeli Defense Forces, briefings from Israel's coordinator for humanitarian aid into Gaza, and aborted plans to send emails over the Pentagon's secret internet protocol router network for sharing classified information. Okay, I don't really care. But if you take a look at those posts specifically, he didn't really share much classified information, and I'm not surprised by that either. I don't think anyone had a problem with him because he shared classified information. We know why there was a problem with him. You know, he spoke up about war crimes. He spoke up critically about what Israel was carrying out. You just can't do that. You're not allowed to do that. You can do that when it comes to how our government here in the United States is carrying out a war. But God forbid, you're ever critical of the IDF or the Israeli government. So he says, a buddy of mine is a general in the IDF. He told me, screw the settlers. They can be Jewish Palestinians just like the Arab Israelis. They choose to move there illegally. By the way, nice. There's an IDF soldier who says, screw the settlers. The settlers are the worst, okay? These are the people who like rioted when they found out that some of the Israeli prison guards who filmed themselves raping Palestinian prisoners might get investigated and punished. These are like loathsome, disgusting people. Like aside from running Palestinians out of their legal homes in the West Bank, aside from terrorizing them for decades, aside from the fact that they steal homes, build illegal settlements, they also, of course, tried to block humanitarian aid into Gaza when the Israeli government finally relented a little bit. They just loathsome, the settlers. But Nate, that was his anonymous moniker, McCormick, wrote also that it is a useful diversion for the media. But I think that if Israel escalates this into an offensive against Lebanon, this is probably when Israel was fighting Hezbollah in Lebanon. They are effed. And we have already told them that repeatedly. I was going to email you on SIPR last week, but I didn't want to email the wrong person. Wow, he sounds reckless, super reckless. Now, McCormick's profile did include a disclaimer stating that his posts do not represent the position of the department. What are you doing? Why would you do that? That gives the game away, but it's my opinions. It's not the opinion of the Pentagon. But still, his posts were apparently too much. So one Department of Defense contractor who interacted with McCormick told JNS, that's a publication, this is the kind of bitter oversharing I'd expect from someone who doesn't know better. But at his level and under his own name and likeness, it's mind-boggling. We have enough OPSEC and public perception problems. No, guys, the public perception problem with the Pentagon is the fact that you can't pass a single freaking audit. The problem with the Pentagon is that there are no brakes on the car when it comes to aiding and abetting genocide, okay? Like, just stop. McCormick is like bottom of the list, very bottom of the list when it comes to people who make the Pentagon look bad. So he lost his job. He was fired. Don't criticize Israel, apparently. There will be huge consequences for that. Just absolutely shameful. And he's right. People like to say that Israel is a vassal state of the United States. That is such a laugh. It's the other way around. Let's take a break. We'll be right back.
So beautiful.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to our social break, our final social break. I'm going to try to read through these as quickly as I can. Let's go to, I read that. Adam Christman, who says he read this in the Trump Bible. That's hilarious. And look, I've obviously never purchased a Trump Bible. I don't know if it's like literally the same thing as any other Bible, but who knows? Let's go to Elliot, who says, no, Anna, it's only barbaric if it's not done in a suit and tie, meaning war crimes on the Israeli side. Romulus 463 says, the Ottoman, Lenin, Hitler, and every other tyrant in history, look back in history, fingers removed from smiths so they couldn't use tools. Tyrants always disarm opposition. Trump is an authoritarian, but so far, not a tyrant. I think Romulus is actually on the right. So interesting that you're aware of the authoritarian stuff and calling it out, and I give you props for that. Mohammed Rabini says, respect to Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens. Best American journalist from and love from Iran. Peace to good, hardworking Americans. Ron Paul for president 2028. Are you really in Iran? Please stay safe. And I really just, can you tell your people that we don't want to go to war with you and we're being forced into it because we really don't want it. Even a tiny minority of Republican voters want a regime change war, which is like the most shocking thing of that poll that we shared earlier. Because like in the Bush years, Republicans, I mean, just foaming at the mouth neocons, both politicians and the base. But things have changed, and you know what? Let's celebrate that a little bit, like in terms of public opinion, because that's so different from, the early aughts. All right, let's go to Darth Hefe, who says, good Lord, I didn't realize how thoroughly Tucker cooked Ted. It was like so good to watch. Check it out because there's a lot I couldn't get to, and I think you'll enjoy it. Steph Mont 12 says, come on, Anna, you know the commandment, thou shalt not kill unless it is in the name of Israel and their takeover of the Middle East. Cruz is a POS. Agreed on all counts. Amberjack 09 says, it looks like Tucker was visited by the three ghosts of journalism. Yeah. I love it. I hope he keeps doing it. That was fantastic. It really was. I can't say more about it. It was just so good. AJ Nestor says, so insane how people want to manifest the apocalypse as if they will see paradise afterward. Yeah, they're insane. Let's not do the apocalypse. Let's try to maintain and improve.
Beautiful.
All right, Metal Turtle 571 gifting 5 TYT subs to TYT's community. Thank you. Love the support, appreciate the support. You guys are the best. I'm gonna read a few member comments and then I'll move on to the next story. Corey writes in and says, I watched the Tucker and Cruz interview. Wow, crazy. I could find myself agreeing with Tucker. He gave Cruz hell. It made him so uncomfortable and I love it. Thank you guys for opening my mind and allowing me to be open to having dialogue with the other side. I love that. By the way, when you have dialogue with the other side, doesn't mean I want you to agree with them. First of all, even if you disagree with them, at least through dialogue, you understand where they're coming from or what their arguments are, instead of just allowing the mainstream media or people on your side of the political aisle who have no idea summarize what their, or mischaracterize, what their actual argument is. And that made me not as good at my job as I should have been. You know what I'm saying? I just kind of went along with mischaracterizations. And now I feel like I thoroughly understand people and what their motivations are. And that's important to do to have a better perspective of the world around us. Art Guy says, I hope I'm wrong about this, but I have a horrible feeling Iran is saving something big for when the United States starts bombing them. That country is too big to fall apart after only a week of war. It's not going to fall apart after a week of war. I don't know. I don't know if they have some trick up their sleeve. What I do know is that they showed so much restraint on so many different occasions and it didn't matter. And that sends a really bad message across the globe, right? So when Israel bombs their embassy in Syria, they were so restrained. Like, can you imagine if Iran bombed an Israeli embassy in some other country, in a sovereign country? You think Israel would be restrained? You think Israel would wait a few days and then hit up Iran and be like, yo, Iran, my Shiite brothers and sisters, we're gonna do some drone strikes in 72 hours. Here's where the drone strikes are gonna be so you can shoot them down. We just wanna show our people that we retaliated so they're not upset with us. Anyway, all right, let's get to our next story. We've got a lot more to get to.
Hi, Charlie, I'm Addie and I'm 14. I'm a freshman in high school. And I was wondering, as someone who has like a different opinion on college, what would you say the pros and cons are? Because I'm interested in political journalism. And what would your advice be?
I think there is an argument to bring back the MRS degree. And no, seriously.
I think you're making a really good case to bring back the PIG degree, you know? To that 14-year-old girl, I don't know if she'll ever see this. If you have intellectual curiosity, if you have a passion, you want to do political journalism, you go get it, girl. You go get it. Okay, pursue what you're interested in. And don't ask Charlie Kirk for advice. You're literally asking the worst person in the country for advice on what you should do with your future as a young woman. Anyway, at Turning Point USA's conference for conservative young women, where are her parents and why are they doing this to her? But okay. Charlie Kirk told a crowd full of high schoolers if they're interested in college, they should go get an MRS degree. Okay, you just heard an example of it. Now, before we hear more from Charlie Kirk, who apparently knows what's best for women, young women, let's just talk a little bit about, look, MRS degree, Mrs. degree, he's basically saying, you're gonna get married, you're gonna be a parent, you're gonna have kids, you don't need to work. He lives in a fantasy land. He has a lot of money. He doesn't have to worry about his wife needing to work in order to make ends meet. But also, even if they are rich and she doesn't need to work, if she wants to pursue a career, she should be able to do it. But Charlie Kirk has been really aggressively pushing this like, ooh, traditional gender norms. And if you're a woman, you should be in the household, you should be raising your kids. Look, if you want to do that, I really do respect it. And I wish that we had an economy set up in which we didn't need dual income households to make ends meet. That's what I want to get to. I desperately want to get to an economic system that's far better than the trash that we have now. You know, where we don't have these huge disparities in income and wealth among Americans. And it's really pronounced in places like Los Angeles. So a lot of working class people who live in these big cities, for instance, they don't have the freaking luxury of being stay-at-home moms, even if they desperately want it. But look, I'm expecting Charlie Kirk of all people to get into this kind of conversation. No, he's gonna do like oh, I owned you, get an MRS degree. There's no depth to this guy. All right, so with that in mind, let's go to the next clip.
Let me also speak to some of the young ladies here in high school where your top, who's here where your top priority is get married and have kids? Raise your hand. Okay. Interestingly, I think there is an argument to bring back the MRS degree. And no, seriously. And just be clear, that's why you're going to college, right? Don't lie to yourself, I'm studying sociology. No, you're not, we know why you're here. And that's okay, actually. And that's a really good reason to go to college, actually. Especially an SEC school. Like, you will find a husband if you have the intent to find a husband at Ole Miss. Like, it's just gonna happen, okay? Or wherever. Yeah, there you go, see? Or at University of Alabama. But there you go.
Sometimes, rarely, I have expensive tastes. All women do. Depends. It depends on what your thing is. I like weird antiques. I know, I'm 85 years old. I like cool perfume bottles from the 1920s. I collect them. Sometimes they're a little pricey. And you want to know what's really nice? That I don't have to ask my husband for permission or for an allowance. that I have my own economic liberty and independence. Now, I'm in a really happy marriage. And if there's a big item, super expensive, obviously, like we talk and we make sure that we're on the same page. But, it's just, I have this feeling, I could be wrong, right? This is totally speculation. I have this feeling that there's like an element of control involved here. And it really bothers me. And when you have a young woman, when you have a 14-year-old tell you that she's interested in political science or political journalism, when your like retort is, you need a MRS degree, you're not helping. And this whole event is just a charade, like a charade, okay? Like it's useless. I can't believe parents are taking their kids here, but okay, there's more. He also wants to bring back the celebration of said degrees. Let's watch.
If you think about it, like I say college is a scam, but if you're gonna find your life partner, like that's actually a really good reason to go to college. You have a bunch of people that are single, they're at the prime of their, let's just say attractiveness. The dating pool is as robust as you'll ever find, and they all live together over a 4-year period. Like you don't get much better than that, okay? It doesn't get better after college there. And so yeah, you could go learn some stuff. That's fine, I guess, or whatever. Just don't listen to your professors. But that actually was the reason why a lot of women went to college in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, and it worked for a lot. Marriage rates have plummeted since that.
Charlie, what would you know about college? What would you know about finding a partner in college? You didn't go to college. Homeboy acts like, oh yeah, I had a great 4 years in college. I met my wife there. You didn't go to college. So why are you giving advice on finding a partner to marry in college? And no, most people don't go to college because they're looking for a mate. In fact, a lot of people go to college because we live in the type of economy where even to get like a low-level job, you need a 4-year degree at this point. And I think we need to change that. But people go to college because they don't want to live in poverty. But then they end up taking on a massive amount of student loan debt and they live in poverty. There's a lot of messed up things happening in this country right now. And so when you are answering questions from young people who have their whole future ahead of them and you turn it into a whole joke and give them this crappy advice, I don't know, I just get offended by it. Because I would kill to go back to 14 and know the things that I know today and do things a little differently. But I was very lucky. I had a lot of great adults in my life who were mentors, who guided me, who gave me good advice. And I ended up with a happy marriage and a career. It's not a happy career. We talk about a lot of depressing stuff, but I love what I do. And so I just don't want these kids to take anything Charlie Kirk is saying seriously, because again, he's like really directing them in a bad direction. Now he, while sitting on stage with his wife, he also stated, if you're not married by the age of 30, you only have a 50% chance of getting married. I don't know where he got that number from. People are getting married later and later in life. I will say this, if you want to have kids, get married sooner rather than later. Because once you hit like the mid-30s, like you just start getting real tired. You're not want to have kids, okay? You're gonna want them to be a little more grown. But if you've decided maybe kids aren't for me, great, you can get married a little past 30. You get married at 40, you get married at 50. People get married and divorced and then married again. Like, what are you doing? Like, why are you giving relationship advice? So he cited the same percentage about having children. And by the way, the lore behind his wife, Erica Kirk, is telling. So Erica is a former Miss Arizona who, according to Kyle Spencer's book, first met Charlie while seeking a job at Turning Point USA. Wait, are you saying that women can meet someone that they might want to marry at the workplace? Interesting, okay. And apparently, so this was when she was seeking a job at Turning Point USA. I'm not going to hire you, he told her when he was done with the interview. I'm going to date you. Not creepy at all. Not creepy at all. I hope that someone in that family does a little wellness check, on that marriage and everything's okay. But don't take relationship advice. Don't take career advice from the likes of Charlie Kirk, especially if you're a young woman. I don't know what these parents were thinking. Charlie Kirk has also helped build the evolving womanosphere. I'm done with the story. That's it. We're done with it. All right. Bonus episode is going to be lit. We're going to talk about the CNN appearance I had yesterday, what we talked about. We're going to have some fun. Kate Bettino, our super producer, is going to be joining me. So don't miss it. tyt.com/join to become a member. And we'll see you there soon.